Welcome to New Release Review, part of the Movie Friends podcast. I'm Michelle, and today we are talking about It Ends With Us from 2024, directed by Justin Baldoni. This episode will not be spoiler-free, so if you haven't seen the movie, please go watch it and come back and listen. My guests for today are Ingrid and Liss. Good morning, ladies.
Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So glad we're doing this together because what I love most about this, well, one, because you guys are my best friends, but two, we saw the movie together, and three, Ingrid and I both read this book, and Liss did not read the book. So we have so many perspectives going into this discussion.
I'm excited.
Me too. I have a lot to say.
Me too.
Ooh.
And so we went Friday night and we got out late. And as soon as it ended, we're all just like, we're trying to get it out. But I'm like, I don't want to say too much. I have to marinate. We're going to do an episode on it. So I guess I just want to start with Liss, actually.
Let's do it.
You sat next to me in the theater. You cried the entire time.
I cried from like the midway point probably to the end.
I
But,
wanted to grab your hand and just be like, are you okay? Because I just heard a big and then also my mom and sister joined, and my mom read the book like Ingrid and I, and my sister didn't, like Liss. So Sam is such an audible
so
viewer.
Audible.
Every moment she's like,
It took everything in me not to elbow her. I was like, Samantha, take a breath. It's okay. He's not going to kidnap the child.
I know. She was worried about that.
She was very worried.
Yeah.
Justified.
Right. Right. But Liss, okay, so you went into this movie not, knowing the story from clips you're seeing on social media, but you didn't read this book.
No, my mom did. My mom said she really liked it. She really enjoyed it. She wanted to read other Colleen Hoover books.
Yeah.
And I'm not a reader. I mean, everyone in my life and on the internet, everyone knows I don't read. I listen. If I'm gonna read, it's gonna be listening. So I heard the hype of it, and I love Blake Lively. I love Justin Baldoni. I love Taylor Swift. So I was like, okay, sign me up. When can I go? But waiting to see how they're gonna do it. And I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought the acting was so good. I thought it was so good. And granted, I don't know how the story plays out in the book, but the way that they portrayed it here, I think, and I know you guys will talk about more of the abuse aspect of it, because while it was present, it wasn't probably as volatile as you guys read. So it was kind of nice for the audience not to have to witness such heaviness.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at beautiful people and just, the empowerment at the end. So that's my feelings so far.
Yeah. You said in our text yesterday, you're like, I have many thoughts on Justin. And I didn't know what you meant by that. Are we talking about him, his role as Ryle in the film, him as a human being, his overall aesthetic appearance?
Yeah, no, exactly. All three of those things.
Okay.
So as Michelle has said, we went to the movie at like 9 p.m., which, for us 30 biddies, we don't hang that late normally. So, I got home close to midnight and I was like literally riled up because Justin Baldoni, he's so stunning, right? And his character is on the cocky side, minus the anger. And so I really couldn't sleep right away. I was like just a little bit jazzed. And so I was thinking about him and like the movie and the violence, but also just how charming he was as a character. Hence why she why she fell for him. And then I was like thinking in the back burner, I'm like, but Justin Baldoni's so good in real life. So I had like this just all these mixed thoughts of Justin Baldoni before I was going to sleep. And I I was hoping I wasn't going to have a bad dream because I didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Ing, you just read the book. So how did you feel? I'm so curious. You're fresh off the book. I read the book back in 2021.
Oh, wow.
It came out in 2016. And I remembered the overall theme of it, and then leading up to the movie, I was like, let me re-listen to it. So I'm also very fresh off of it. So
Mhm.
Ing, what'd you think?
So, it's hard for me because I'm trying to separate me being like, "This wasn't in it, they would change this. Why?" I was like, "That was upsetting," so I'm trying to look at it as if I didn't read the book. If I hadn't read the book, I would've liked it a lot more. Like, I still liked it, but I would've, like, scored it higher if I were to rate the movie. But, overall, I enjoyed it. I think they did a pretty good job, but I feel like all I kept thinking about was why did they change such tiny things that were important in the book and important to the storyline? It wasn't like these huge things that would have cost more money or like these huge scenes that would have been hard to film. I just kept thinking like, why did they take out the magnet? Or
I
why
know.
didn't they keep in him telling her to just keep swimming? Why did they remove that whole thing? Did Ellen not want to be a part of this? Like, what's going
Yeah,
on?
I know
Like,
they changed like the restaurant name, right? So why that?
Yeah. So I feel exactly the same way as you, Ing. And I almost wish I didn't re-listen and make it fresh because I think I would have enjoyed it more. And I felt the same way. I just kept comparing it and like, why did we make these changes? And I'm also trying to look at it as like, okay, let's just look at this as a standalone movie. Like Liz said, the acting I thought was great. I thought the casting was great. I thought the directing was great. It looked great. Everything looked good, but something is missing for me. And it I don't know if I like this
mhm.
movie. I don't dislike the movie. It's just like I'm in this weird middle spot. But as far as the changes, I would love to talk to you guys about the changes because
I I actually made a list of
yes,
every
me
single
too.
change.
Great. Okay, awesome. So I was reading, and I don't know if you came across this, Ing. Every change that was made involved Colleen. So
Oh.
Christy Hall, she wrote the screenplay, and the book is by Colleen Hoover, and then Justin directed it, and then Blake was, a producer on it. So any small change that was made, Colleen was a part of. So, in what was like the where do you want to start with the changes? What was the biggest one for you? I know we mentioned the magnet and just
The
saying,
magnet, the Better in Boston magnet, which ties into the magnet causing their big fight at the
yeah,
end. Because the restaurant is called Bibs, which is Better in Boston.
right,
So, that's when Ryle connects the magnet to Better in Boston and the fact that they completely took out that he looked at all her journals, which triggered the fight.
Oh.
right.
The movie being the tattoo triggering it is, I don't think Ryle in real life would have even
Yeah.
connected the two. Like, the tattoo wasn't enough for
I
me,
agree.
you know? The tattoo is huge because she got that tattoo because of the wood carving he made for her, and they don't mention that that Atlas would always kiss her in that
Mm.
spot. That's why it's in that
Right.
spot.
Yep.
So if you're gonna use that tattoo, then you gotta explain, you gotta show with Atlas. I don't think we got enough Atlas. I don't think we got how special Atlas was to her. They did a good job of showing it, and I thought those actors did an amazing job, but I feel like if you're gonna use the tattoo, then you have to explain that the tattoo was put there because that was where Atlas always
Yeah.
kissed
Oh, what
her.
a deeper love like meaning to that. And I feel like even if Ryle were to find like the wooden heart, maybe that would have triggered it more than him like looking at the tattoo. Because
Right.
Atlas says about the oak tree, and so I feel like the oak heart would have
Mhm.
been more of a trigger than the tattoo that sort of looks woody, but it's really just a heart. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been I would have been surprised if I heard that.
Yeah.
"Oh, that's the place he used to kiss me." Like, maybe she tells someone else, obviously not him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, and there's a huge thing, and I understand, like, we're trying to jam so much into 2
Mm.
hours, so overall, I think they did a good job, but, like, we get so much of it's the first person view of Lily telling this story, and we get so much of her journal entries, like, she writes to Ellen. She's obsessed with Ellen DeGeneres. She writes all of her feelings and thoughts, recalls her day to Ellen, and her and Atlas bond over watching the Ellen show. we got a little bit of that. Like if you looked on the bed when we looked at her journal entry, it said Dear Ellen.
Yes.
Dear Ellen. Yeah.
I read that, Ellen's career and, a lot of stuff came out about the toxic workplace at her show. And so they admitted that on purpose to
Okay.
not really spotlight Ellen.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
But maybe we just could have had more of Lily writing in the journal or just writing Dear Diary. I don't know. We just needed some more. We needed some more.
The journals, yeah, I think Ryle finding those journals and them being scattered everywhere and her walking in and being like, oh shit, like that was like the huge moment which led to that, the final, fight between the two of them. So I thought that
Was
was, I don't
there
know.
the newspaper article in the book that shows that
Yes.
he was number one
Yes.
and the reasoning as to why he picked
Yep.
the name?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The writing about it was a little different. He didn't say he didn't mention the trees. He just mentioned like the fact that the name of the obviously it was Bibbs in the book. So he says, everything's better in Boston, and then he mentions like a special girl in his life. It didn't mention like the Roots because obviously the restaurant wasn't called Roots in the book. So it was slightly different, but yeah, there was that wasn't different. It was in the newspaper article or magazine or whatever it
Gotcha.
was. And then he does do that to her where he tells her to read it and she gets
Yeah.
uncomfortable and that kicks off the fight. But it wasn't, he doesn't bring up the tattoo. It was also, he brought up the magnet, like, because the magnet apparently was in the movie. I missed it, but I looked it
Yeah,
up.
it was on the journal entry. I think it
Yeah.
was.
I heard on TikTok someone say, "Did anyone see the magnet?" And naturally, I don't know what they mean by that, but
Right.
they said it did make a cameo, but obviously it wasn't the
Yes.
catalyst
Right.
of the fights.
Yeah, because in the book when he first, and she has her own apartment, which we don't really see much of. We only see it a tiny bit, but he used to come over to her apartment, Ryle, and he'd be like, if you're trying to be a real Boston, native, you probably shouldn't have a corny better in Boston magnet, which at that time, we don't know that Atlas gives her that magnet. And, throughout the book, I mean, Ryle keeps bringing it up, like, what's with the magnet? Like, why did you? Because, they move into this huge penthouse apartment together after they're married, and the magnet comes, and he's like, what's with the magnet? And she's like, oh, at this point, I just keep it, blah, blah, blah. Like, she doesn't tell him it's
Yeah.
Atlas. And then when he sees the restaurant name is Better in Boston, that's what he
Gotcha.
connects.
Okay.
Yeah. I watched an interview with Colleen and she said the reason for like the change of the restaurant is Bibbs sounds weird and looks weird. Because in the book it's called Bibbs, Better in Boston.
Right.
And I don't know, I don't think that sounds weird. It just to me it sounds like a bib lettuce.
Yeah, bib lettuce. Bibs.
Right? Or you wear a bib when you go to eat
Right.
Yeah,
something like
I don't know. I feel like
delicious.
it's still cool. It's equally as cool as Roots.
Yes.
Oh, let's go to Bibs. Like, I don't know. It feels very like urban, cool, downtown city.
Yeah.
That was silly.
And I mean, it's funny that she says it doesn't sound good. It's like you invented it. You wrote
Well,
it.
I was
What do
I
you
was
mean?
thinking that too. I know Colleen, she one of the biggest differences are the characters are aged up in the movie and they were younger in the books. And she came out and
Mhm.
said, like, at a time she was writing this, it was for college age. That was like what was popular in writing. And so
Yeah.
she got to fix that. So I'm happy for her. So maybe this was part of that. Like she could fix a mistake she felt she made.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What did you think of they changed this might be insignificant, but Atlas in the book did suffer from abuse, but it was his stepfather towards him. And he was mad that his
Mhm.
mother didn't stick up for him.
Mm.
In the movie, his mother was abused by his father.
Right.
It's a tiny change.
Yeah.
A tiny change. That didn't bother me as
Yeah.
much. What if we're gonna talk about Atlas? I don't like that they didn't keep. Remember, he gets really, really sick, and she takes care of him.
Yes.
I thought that was like a huge thing because, like, it was freezing. It was winter. He didn't have heat, obviously, in that house, so he would come over.
Yeah.
I understand. Again, it's a movie; they have to cram a lot in, but I feel like we missed out on a lot of her and Atlas's journey
Yeah.
together.
I could agree
Yeah.
to that.
I still think they did a good job. They were able to squeeze enough in there. They have the baking scene and everything, and then you know, I just felt like I needed a little bit more of Atlas, I
Yeah,
think.
I
and
agree.
for someone who doesn't know their history, I could agree to that as well. I feel like, yes, your first love in high school is something that kind of like moves you, and it stays with you for the rest of your life at some, on some levels. And it's like, I wanted to understand just a little bit more as to like their deeper connection. Because you see it, you
Mhm.
can understand why they like each other and why it was kind of intense, but I would have liked to see more intensity. And then
Yeah.
we see her
Yeah,
dad
so
literally beating the shit out of him, so that was really intense.
yeah, and then we missed like other things that they removed from Atlas's and Lily's story was Atlas went and looked for her at college.
Oh.
That we don't see. So cuz she at one point was like, "Why didn't you look? Why didn't you come back for me?" And he's like, "I did." And then he tells her, "Look, I went to college and I saw you and you had a boyfriend and you looked happy. So I re-enlisted in
Oh,
the
wow. Yeah,
military."
we
Mhm.
needed
So
that.
after his first yeah, so after his first 4 years in the military, he comes back to find her and he's like looking from afar and she's at college and of course she's got like this guy with his arms around her or whatever and he's like, okay, you know what, she's moved on, she's happy, and she's like, that was literally like a six
Yeah,
month like
nothing.
not important relationship.
Yeah.
She was like, he meant nothing. And and then Atlas had kept a signed copy of Ellen's book for her for years to
Mm.
give to Lily, and he ends up giving it to her when he, sees her again. Like little things like that. I was like, could we have at least had a little bit more
Yeah. You can
Atlas?
definitely
You
tell,
know?
like, he lives and loves her even as an adult, like,
Mm-hmm.
all these years later. I wish we would have heard, "Hey, I wrote you a letter, but hey, I didn't get it," or, just something that, like,
Yeah.
they reached out to each other, because it seems so far-fetched that you would be so intense and, have sex with this person and love this person, and then for you to never speak to them ever again. Like, that's what the movie made it seem
Right.
like. All like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
15 years later or whatever it is, they meet up again
Yeah.
randomly, and it's
Right.
just like it seems so far-fetched.
And again,
Mm-hmm.
I know we have like our core cast and it's hard to cast side characters. I mean, Lily had a roommate, Lucy, who ends up working for the shop.
Oh.
She also has a gay best friend that she uses to make, yes,
Devin.
Ryle
Yeah.
jealous.
Ah.
We also have this scene in the book, which I very,
The poker one,
yes,
right?
I very much enjoy it. So
Yes.
the final, the big abuse scene that Lily goes through with Ryle is very different in the book versus the movie. And
Mm-hmm.
we told you this list after the movie, but like when that whole sequence was portrayed differently. But when Ryle falls asleep, Lily is so scared she calls Atlas, and Atlas comes to her apartment and picks her up and brings her to the hospital. She also needs stitches in her.
Because Ryle
Yes,
headbutts
and
her.
also they want to do a full exam, and she does find out she's pregnant in the
Yeah.
hospital. But when she goes to stay with Atlas, she's there for a couple of days, and one day when he's at work, a bunch of his friends show up for poker night, and she
Mm-hmm.
bonds with them, and I was like, "Man, we could have seen it would have been another layer of Atlas we
Yeah.
could have gotten."
Right. And then that's how she finds out that his girlfriend wasn't real.
Oh.
Yes.
Because the friend she casually she like asked one of the friends, like, so what about Cassie? Or that was
Yes,
her name,
Yeah.
right?
Cassie, yep.
Cassie the what about Cassie? Like, does she join poker night? And they're like, who? Like, they were really a funny group of
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
and I thought that, like, when I was reading the book, I was like, she's surrounded by all these men that she doesn't know, and she's seeing like kindness and like that not all men are, even though it's like just a one night. That's how I saw that scene as like, at first she was scared to let them in because she doesn't know who they are, but then she sees what like a great group of friends that Atlas has, and she brings up Cassie and they're like, he doesn't have a girlfriend. And then she gets upset with Atlas, like, why did you lie, why did you say? And he's like, you looked
Mhm.
happy with Ryle.
Right.
She's like, we weren't even, because in the book they weren't even officially boyfriend and girlfriend at that point. In the movie
Yeah.
they were. In the book they weren't. There was like a year. She's like, oh, seen him, I've known him for a year, whatever she says to Atlas. And Atlas takes it as they've been dating for a year, but they really weren't. They were just having these little run-ins, but in the movie they were
Right.
dating. So
I
that was
felt
different.
I could understand, and it came off that he kind of threw in the detail, like, yeah, I'm seeing someone too, to not seem obviously like desperate in a way, or like to make her feel like he's not happy, or to make her feel like she can't be happy because he's not happy. Like, he probably just like threw it in, and it
Yeah.
felt apparent to the audience, at least to me, that like maybe she's not real. He just said that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, when they go back to his place and she's walking in, I mean, she says it's so just like oh, Cassie doesn't exist. I was like, this is such a throwaway line. Like, I get where, but for her
Yeah.
to deliver it, I was like, I understand we're getting it in. I just didn't like the execution of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was really hoping Alice was gonna have his little, his
I
house out
know.
in the outside of the city, but he ends up having an apartment. I was like, oh,
I
bamboozled. I
know.
really wanted her to go to this because it's such a part of her healing because she's there for a few days and it's like his
Yep.
house out of the city and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, come on. We're doing Atlas dirty
We
here.
are doing Atlas
Team
dirty.
Atlas.
And what did you think of like when he drops Lily off? Okay, she's going back home.
Mhm.
And he gives her this hug and he says to her, if you ever open up your heart again, I hope you love me. It was something along the lines. He does not say that. In the book, he doesn't say that, right, Ing? That's not how
He says something though along those lines like he does say something about I hope you choose me if you're like ready to be in love with
at
me
Yeah.
or
that
something
point
like
he
that.
says that?
Yeah, before because then time passes and they don't see each other again for like a year or whatever it is.
Okay. All right. I'm glad
He
he does.
does say something. I don't know if it's that exact thing. I was trying to remember exactly, but he does say something like that. Like I hope you choose me if you're
Wow.
ready.
Okay, I must have
Like he
totally
does
forgot
say
that.
that.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He does say like a little thing like that. Cuz then you're like, "Oh god, please pick him." But also I think they did Ryle a little they disservice too
Yes. Yes.
because Ryle even though he has his issues and obviously abuses her, which is awful, he really does love her. And
I saw that.
yeah, it's just like there was one thing that they didn't add, and I was like, why didn't you add this? Ryle at one point, I guess because they don't really show her in her apartment much. There's
Yeah.
a point where Ryle is like can't stop thinking about her because this is during the time where they're just like kind of bumping into each other every once in a while, where he goes and knocks on 29 apartments looking for her
Wow.
and he knocks on 29 doors to find her and then he eventually finds her apartment and that's when he tells her to like make it stop because he can't stop thinking
Hmm.
about her, which they didn't keep in the book. I mean in the movie, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, even starting with the rooftop scene, this infamous
Mhm.
rooftop scene that apparently Ryan Reynolds wrote,
The
which I'm
drama.
like,
Mhm.
how did this happen? How? Like, it's just like Blake is on, and then Ryan gets involved because I know Blake and Ryan work on each other's
What
projects.
was so different about it
Yeah.
that he
Well,
added?
The banter
the
Okay.
was
banter is
different.
different, and Lily tells Ryle that night about the domestic violence that happened in her household.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so he knows that immediately.
Yep.
And also Ryle, he is very, I mean, we kind of get the same attitude on the rooftop, but it's very clear that he's not into relationships. He's just into one night stands.
Yeah.
His career is very
Yeah.
important to him, and that's what he feels is success. And so throughout the courtship is just different, and he just wants to sleep with her once. And that's what
Yeah.
keeps happening is that every time they run in, he's like, just once.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He also didn't take the picture of
he
her
didn't.
in the movie.
He didn't.
So, in the book, on the rooftop, he takes a picture of her because whatever, and he ends up blowing it up, and it's like a blurry, like artistic picture, but it hangs up in his apartment, and she comes over and she sees that he's this whole time has
Mm,
had this picture of her
yeah.
in his apartment.
Yeah.
So that and then the other time something else that they removed was when Lily was in the shop, like getting it ready. She actually falls and hurts her ankle, and then that's when they call Ryle to come help her with her ankle, instead of when they called to have them
Right.
help hang
And
up
is
the
that's when she
heavy.
sees that
Yes.
that's her brother, and or no?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, it's funny because the narrator of the audiobook I listened to kept saying Ilissa. So that's how I don't know Ilissa. I
Oh.
don't know who Ilissa is. I just
Yes, they said Elisa, and that was throwing me off too because I did audio as well, and it was Elisa, and I was
Ilissa.
like, oh,
Interesting.
I was like, all right, so it's Elisa or Alyssa?
Right.
Yeah, no, it was
Right.
very clearly
Yeah.
Ilissa in the movie.
Very.
Mm-hmm.
Very. What did you guys think of Jenny Slate as Ilissa?
I loved.
I think she was great.
She was great.
She was equally funny and smart and witty, but like a really good friend.
Yeah. And I think they did a good job portraying her. She's pretty spot on, I think, from book to movie. Like tiny changes. And her husband, Marshall, I think did a good job. Like Hassan did a great
Yeah,
job as Marshall.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're just very rich. And so they just
Yeah.
own the building. And there was just a little differences. Like Elisa like doesn't need to work. She just is bored and wants to work. And so
Well, right. Like when I see her for the first time, I'm confused as to why she wants to work, wants to have
yeah.
a job, because it seems like she's well to do. She's very jappy. And then you realize, like, oh no, they like have loads of money and she just like needs this side project because she's probably bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, Michelle, I don't know if you caught this.
Yeah.
When Elisa comes into the shop in the book, she's just like right to the point, like, yeah, I'm just bored and I just want to work here. In the movie, though, they do this whole thing with the flowers and she doesn't like flowers.
Yeah. I thought that
That threw me
was
off. I'm like, why
strange.
are we doing this? And I know later on it kind of ties into why she doesn't like flowers because of the funeral for the brother when she was little.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, because in the book, they go into this, explanation with the flowers. It's more of Lily pitching an idea because she's like, well, what are your plans for the flower shop? Elisa doesn't say anything about disliking flowers. It just then Lily goes into, the typical flower shops are pretty pastels and this and that and very simple and cute. And she's like, I want to do a dark twist on it. And then that's why it's so like an edgy flower shop, not
Which
because
I loved.
not because Elisa doesn't like flowers. I just thought that was a weird change.
Yeah. And
Not a
Elisa,
bad one necessarily,
yeah.
just odd.
No, I agree. And Elisa also like dives right in. Like there's a point in the book where she's dressed in like this beautiful white outfit and Elisa just
Yeah.
doesn't even care. She's just like dusting.
Yeah.
Like she was so ready to work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a subtle, tiny change.
Tiny change, but it just still, I was like, huh? I was like, why did we do that? Like, I didn't understand why. I thought it was fine how it was in the
Yeah.
book, but
What
Yeah.
did you guys think about the sets? And maybe you have that in your notes, Michelle, but like, do the sets feel like how they were supposed to be? Because the flower shop, to me, I was like, I would love to go to this flower store. The vibe is
yeah.
so cool. It's different, dark.
Yeah. Again, like when I read it years and years ago, I saw no set pictures. So I really don't
Right.
remember what I thought, if I had any visual images. I mean, also I want to tie in Blake's wardrobe because people had so
Oh,
many
yeah.
Problem
words
with
to
it.
say about this. There's no mention really. The only mention of wardrobe and clothing is Lily is very attracted to Ryle when he's in scrubs. Scrubs is like
Yes.
her thing.
That's her like,
Which is so
oh
funny.
man, he's wearing scrubs, let's bang. Like that's
That's right.
her
Like
thing.
so hot. I can't believe you're wearing the scrubs. They do it for me. And then like Elisa's just dressed really
They never
nicely.
mention what Lily wears. Ever.
Never. Ever.
So I think that's why Blake wanted to just make her very like quirky, I guess. It was a little some of her outfits I was like, girly, what are we doing here? But I get it also because she's like this, edgy florist. But
Yeah.
some of them I was like, okay, definitely if I had read it, because again, since I read it now, I already knew Blake was her. So I already envisioned, I was like, why make a different
Right.
imaginary character for myself in my brain? Let's just envision
Right.
Justin
Right.
and Blake and all them. But the outfits, I understand, but probably not. I definitely wouldn't have pictured that reading it if I didn't know about this movie already.
Yeah. I feel like I didn't picture her with any clothes.
Well, yeah,
But
they don't bring up her outfits at all.
no, just that she has red hair.
Yep.
just that she
Yeah.
has red hair.
Did
Yeah.
you guys feel like as the movie went on, I felt her hair got redder and redder?
Yeah.
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 Like it wasn't as
Yeah.
red in the first couple of scenes, and then as the movie went on, I'm like, oh, her hair's like pretty red now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know people
Yeah,
are
the
complaining
shade
about that
changed.
too.
But to go back, I think the sets were beautiful. And so when I re-listened to it, I was just picturing what I saw online. So I don't even
Right.
really remember like the floral shop or I mean the rooftop is a basic rooftop with the Boston skyline. I think I pictured that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. I want to talk a little bit more about Ryle with you guys
Mm-hmm.
and some major he's such this is such a complicated character.
Yep.
And we do
Yes.
it's I'm so just conflicted. I think Justin did a good job of portraying him, and we do see how much he does love Lily. I mean, in the scenes, he has tears in his eyes, and I think the emotion was there.
Mm-hmm.
But in the book, we just got so much more of him and Lily. And the first time he does hit her, she warns him, like, I'm not doing this again.
Right.
You do this again, I'm out. And we do see that internal struggle. And I know that was like a choice in the movie to make her like an unreliable narrator.
Mm-hmm.
And we do see more of Ryle like trying to show up, him trying to make it work. There's one point in the book where they decide that they are going to stay together and they're going to work out when he gets to the blackout moments.
Yes. That's so important. I can't believe they took that out.
I know. So when he gets angry, he will leave and take some space and then he'll come back, gather himself, and they can talk about it. So there's just much more of their relationship, which I think makes it
Interesting.
more
Yeah.
complicated. And he does keep trying, and it's,
Yeah.
I
In the
don't,
book, they discuss the abuse. Like in the
yes,
movie,
a
it's
lot.
not acknowledged really. And in
Yeah.
the book, she brings it up like, look, like, I don't know what this was because at first she's still kind of like, did he do it on purpose? Wasn't an accident? But either way, he put his hands on me.
Right.
And she says, this is the one and only chance because she's like they were drinking more in the book, like they don't
Yes. Yeah.
really touch on that. They were both very drunk, and he grabs a hot thing, and even in the book you're kind of like, did he pushes at her, which then she hits her head or whatever, but it also you're kind of like, oh, was it an accident? So you're kind of there with her. So she right away says this is the one and only time, and then it becomes, it happens again, and then that's when she finds out about his history. So it's kind of like, okay, you have anger issues. If you're getting angry, you're going to step away, and we're going to step away from the situation. You're going to take some time, and then we're going to get back together and talk about it,
Hmm.
because in the book they're trying to work around his anger, because he blacks out. They don't say that in the movie, like
Right.
because of what happened in his childhood, he gets this anger that he blacks out and he doesn't realize what's happening, and they don't mention that at all. And it's their relationship is them trying to work around that, and it's her giving him a lot of chances, and then until that
Yeah.
final one
Right.
that it comes to a head. And it drives me nuts that she didn't call Atlas, because
I know.
it was a big moment with her saying, yes, I got rid of the number, but she memorized the number because she still had a feeling that she was going to need it.
Right.
Right. Like then it makes me think that she was afraid for her life during
Yeah,
her relationship with
Yes.
him.
she
In the
was.
Yeah.
movie, and like, you don't think anything, at least in my perspective, like you didn't think anything was wrong until she says to him, "Are you happy?" to Ryle, and Ryle's like, "Yeah, of course I am." He's like, "What about you?" And she's like, "Well, happiness is a fleeting feeling. Like I don't always feel happy." And I'm like, "Whoa!" Like to the audience, at least up to this point, it seemed like they had this really like loving, intense, sexual, um, just like relationship, and you think that the frittata incident is an accident because, he touches this hot pan and he like kind of just like moves his hand back. And then later on, we see she remembers it differently, that he
Mm-hmm.
actually shoved her out of the way. And
Mhm.
so I was like, whoa, like it seemed like she was happy until then. And then you start to put the pieces together like, okay, this whole time she probably was actually fearful. And so, yeah, I think if they had the added layer of her memorizing his Atlas's phone number and just like always having him on the back burner, knowing he will be there for her, I think it would have changed. It would have changed the movie for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and another major part that I don't know, maybe it wouldn't have worked in the movie, and there's probably a reason we did this on purpose, but in the book, Ryle is the one to tell Lily that the story of what happened when he was a kid.
Yeah.
They have that very serious conversation instead of Ilissa doing it. And that also just adds like this other layer of them communicating about how can we move forward? Is there a way we can move forward?
Does
Yeah.
he go to therapy? Do they ever talk about therapy?
No, right, Ingrid?
I'm trying
No.
to remember.
He was in therapy. I think there's like a motion that he's been in therapy since he's a kid.
Mm.
Yeah, I think they do
They
say that.
they might have said that actually. Now I'm trying to
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah. But also like Ryle, he wants that, his career was always like his number one goal in life. And he does in the book gets a job offer. He turns it down. And so that's what makes them buy an apartment in Elisa's building.
Mm-hmm.
And then when all of this, the fallout happens, he goes somewhere for 3 months. Is it London for 3 months? And they're separated. But I feel like the first, I don't know, half of the movie were well paced, and then the second half is so rushed
Mm-hmm.
that we just, I don't know, we're bypassing a lot of important stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I feel like honestly, I was waiting for like the shit to hit the fan in the movie
Yeah.
because they
Yeah.
really develop her and Ryle's like courtship, if you will, and the history of like her family's trauma and her and Atlas's background. But then it was like, last like 20 minutes of the movie, you're like, whoa, 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 what, like what's happening here? And it like really gets sped up. And then I don't know, like almost at the end, you're like, not that you want to see the abuse, but I almost wish we would have seen more of her fight back on that. And then at the end
Yeah.
being like, it ends with us, okay? Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
doing this anymore. So I do feel
Yeah.
like the end was rushed.
So the screenwriter, Christy, she originally didn't have Lily saying it ends with us because it's like a big no-no in film. Like, we're not going to put the title into the movie and have the character say that.
No,
But
I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
right. And I mean, that is a huge part of the book. And so after they showed like a draft to selected readers, the reader, like 100% of them fought back. And they're like, you have to put that line in the movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a huge part of the movie.
Right.
So
I really want to know what was in Justin's cut, because apparently there was a cut that Justin did that did better with the test audience than this cut. And I'm like, well, why
The
did he
end
pick?
scene only?
No, the whole movie.
Oh.
There's apparently
Okay.
a cut, because they always make these films and then put it in front of an audience to get feedback and whatever. And apparently Justin's had better feedback. I don't know what happened there and why it changed, but I'm wondering, because Justin really wanted this to showcase what happens with a relationship with domestic violence, and why people, it's always a big question of why do they stay. And that was a whole thing in the book with her questioning her mother the whole time, which they don't really touch on that much. Like in those letters that she's writing to Ellen, in her journal, she's always questioning her mom, like, why are you staying? He does this to you, and all of this is happening. And the whole time she doesn't understand. And now as an adult in her own relationship, she realizes, she stayed because she loved him, because she loves Ryle and probably always will. But, you know, there was this side of him that obviously was not good for her. And when she has the baby, that's when she realizes, like, I can't do this.
yeah.
When you hear press with Justin, he's like, I want like what his goal with the movie was. Maybe there are some Lilies in the audience watching that can get the courage to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it it was a movie about abuse, but it wasn't specifically her abuse. It was just like abuse in general. And I feel like we could have really honed in on like, I don't know, the emotions and the why and more. than like going to the bar and hanging out with Ilissa and I don't know, I feel like we could have cut some scenes and added other scenes to show like why Lily is staying with him, what her past, like telling her past and like how traumatic that was for her. I feel like we missed some of that. So maybe Justin Scott was different like that.
I agree. I mean, guys, let's talk about this tea because the three of us are very much into
what did we do about it?
The gossip tea. I can't stop. It's like, don't worry, darling, all over again.
I know, and I hate that I'm doing it. I feel like
I'm like, I am a part of the problem here. I'm feeding the beast, right? But it's just so strange. I mean, they are doing two different press tours for this.
It's like two different movies.
Yes, Justin is so like emotional on the red carpet when he talks about this movie in interviews. And then you have Blake and the rest of the cast and Colleen
being cutesy about it.
And I watched this interview this morning with Blake and Isabella, who shout out to Isabella Farrer, who played young Lily.
She was amazing.
She was amazing. I mean, they're like spinning images of each other.
They even have the same mole.
And the same
so
voice.
Crazy.
I mean, truly
the
amazing.
Same voice.
She did an amazing job. But I saw the two of them being interviewed on this London British talk show. And the interviewer is like, what do you think about this movie? Like, what do you want people to take away? And she's like, this movie's about hope. And Billy's like, I don't really think it's about hope. I think it's just like a woman's story and there's different levels and life can be complicated. And I get what she's saying, but it's like the two of them are doing two different tours to describe this movie. And why they're not seen together, I can't get over it. Why is nobody following Justin on social media anymore? What happened?
I have no idea. And it's driving me nuts. Even, did you guys see that press junket where, I don't know any of their names, but the interviewer is interviewing the actor that plays Atlas, and then Alice is the actor is like, okay, thank you for whatever, and then the interviewer steps out, and then Ryan Reynolds sits in, and he's like, so let's talk about you kissing my wife.
Yes, I saw.
And I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, wouldn't it have made more sense for that to be Justin? Just saying, because Justin kisses her way more than Atlas does in the movie.
Right.
Yes,
so
that's true.
That clip I sent to you guys, and I thought it was so funny, and that was like kind of the beginning of me getting into the tea. And I was like, after watching it, because then Hugh Jackman gets
he's
involved
getting involved
too.
in all this too.
And I was like, this is funny. I was like, but then like let the tone of this movie, what are we doing? The tone is very, it just doesn't feel right.
Doesn't
Doesn't fit.
Doesn't sit right. Nope. Mm-mm. Yeah.
And then I was reading that some like sources say the cast felt uncomfortable with Justin on set. I'm like,
I know, but then you see so many people comment like, I worked on the movie and Justin was so nice and sweet and whatever. And, and there's so many people are like, you will never make me hate you, Justin. Like, I love Justin. And I felt that way too because of, the past few years of me seeing him really speak out about just female anything, and he's truly like the definition of a feminist. And you're like, well, how could he be both things? I mean, maybe he could be difficult to work with, right? Maybe Blake could be difficult to work with. I don't know. Like, we don't know the ins and outs of that, but I don't know. I had seen somewhere where people were saying that Colleen and Blake were taking a step back because it was more important for Justin to be, because he is the villain, quote, in the movie, to step out and say, like, no, this is why it was important so that people like him more. But then they were also saying they isolated him to make his character more villain-esque. And I'm like, wait, so which one is it? I'm so confused about what the purpose of it all is.
Right. And we talked about this. He got the rights. Colleen held this story so close to her and then was so moved by Justin's outreach. And so, okay, you're so moved, but then why aren't we following each other? Why aren't we following? Why'd you stop following him on social media?
Right.
What happened? Justin's still following all of them.
Yeah.
But they are not following even Jenny Slate too. I'm like, what?
No.
What happened?
It makes me so sad.
I know,
You know?
but you know, like they're giving us nothing. We're all speculating, of course. And
Right, of
Justin
course.
has said that Blake adds everything and anything to a movie. She's so creative, and he thinks she could direct the next one. They asked, like, you have the rights to the next movie. It begins with us.
Yeah.
Mm.
And he was like, I think Blake could direct it. I don't know if I'd
Yeah,
be
I
on the
think
next one.
he's ready to step down from it because of something, you know, like something.
Also,
I think he's had
people,
enough.
there's series 2 that they're doing all of this on purpose just so we talk about it.
Well, sure.
Right.
That it could just
Right.
all be like part of the plan, like, okay, let's do this, and then people will be speculating, and then they'll go see the movie. Like,
I don't
you
know.
know,
I still
Hollywood
feel
does
like
that
people would
too.
do it.
I know it. That seems like so like
Well,
evil.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, but you never know. It could be.
I know. I know.
You never know with
I
these
was,
things.
you know, when you said we should go see it, I was excited to see it, obviously, and didn't, you know, leading up to us going to the theaters, like, didn't really think about the drama of it. And now you're just thinking about it after seeing it because you're like, wait, what happened here? You know, like, I feel like they would have done a really good job of promoting the movie regardless, and they wouldn't need this like added fakeness if that's
I
what they're
know.
True.
doing.
Yeah.
I
I
read
don't
that the New
know.
York premiere they watched in separate theaters. Like Blake and her people watched in one theater, and
Oh,
then
that's
Justin
weird.
and others watched in another. I'm like,
That's weird.
okay, what again? And I think like we could have for the 2 stars of the movie, we could have done this together and made like we could have had conversation around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Right? Like
weird.
why it makes it that much more obvious. Even if you don't have a good working relationship with someone, you spend like 9 months on a movie and afterwards like, God, I can't stand it. It's like, okay, well, at least take a picture with them just to say, hey,
A
we did this
cast
big
photo.
project together, you know? Like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Like, how is he by himself? Like and then like if you look at earlier press junkets before, like during filming, like he was seen with Colleen. You see them like
Yeah.
behind the scenes footage. And then after, I'm like, what happened? What happened? Yeah.
I just hope something doesn't come out that Justin's secretly evil.
Same.
I
That's it.
know.
I could deal with Blake and Ryan being the problem, but I
Yeah.
can't deal with Justin being the problem. I can't.
Same. I can't either. I can't do it.
I can't.
Can't.
I just can't. Isn't that
Can't.
crazy?
I know.
Because like while I love Blake and Ryan, like I think when you think of like Hollywood these days, like they are it. And
Yeah.
hey, maybe they're really big, you know? When you get really big, things could happen. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, ladies. So final thoughts. I don't know if we want to rate this because I still don't know what I'm rating this, but would you recommend people go see this?
Yes.
Yes, I would. And especially I think if you read the book, I think you should definitely see it. And if you didn't, maybe you're interested in seeing it as well and maybe you'll want to read the book. I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to like my friends that enjoy like action movies and like
No.
horror films, of course, but I would recommend it to any of my girlfriends or people that like this kind of film. And then I would definitely, if you read the book, I think you should see the movie
Yeah.
because you already went through it. So, and you went through it
Yeah.
way worse in the book.
Right.
So,
That's exactly right. Like you already went through like the really emotional, traumatizing things and now they're just putting it to screen in a beautiful way and I don't know, just it feels like it makes sense to see it if you read it.
mhm.
I agree. Yeah, I was talking to my friend Brittany about it. She wants to see it. And we were talking about like, should she read the book first or go in blind, kind of like you, Liss? And I was like trying to gather my thoughts. I still haven't given her my answer yet.
I
Let
feel
me get back
like
to you.
if someone's willing to read the book, then I would tell them to read the book first.
Yeah.
It gives more depth to the story and explains a lot more that the film doesn't. But isn't that the case with every book to movie though?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It really is,
Absolutely.
sadly. Like I hate to be one of those like the book's better than the
I
movie
know.
people,
But the
but
books
if
are usually always better.
yeah, because you get a lot more time and there's more you're in the brains of these characters versus them trying to portray all this emotion and feeling and thoughts on screen. So obviously, yes, you're going to get more out of a book, but that doesn't take away from the fact that the movie's good.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Agreed. Well, thank you, ladies. I'm so glad you joined me for this conversation.
Thanks for letting me go. Thanks for telling me to see it because I'm happy that I did.
Oh,
Yay.
yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Of course.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Music by Anthony Vicora. If you like the show, please subscribe and give us a rating. It really helps us find new friends. Thanks!